This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
Israel's resumption of military activity in the Gaza Strip has recorded devastating results, with the Palestinian Health Ministry reporting the death toll as 50,000. Now, some independent reporters have said that this could be 41% lower than the actual death toll. A statement by the Israeli military in the wake of an airstrike this weekend that killed Hamas political leader Salah al-Badawil says that the military action is focused on depleting Hamas's military and government capabilities. As Israel continues its bombardment of Palestine, there is growing concern over the widening conflict, which has also seen strikes towards Israel from Yemen's Houthis. Our guest in this conversation is Ireti Bakari Yusuf, a journalist. Ms. Yusuf, thank you very much for joining us on News Extra.
Hello, Stephen. How are you?
Doing very well. From your coverage, what would you say are the key factors behind the recent escalation?
Israel's delinquency, Israel's refusal to actually stick by the terms of a deal, a ceasefire deal that had been agreed almost a year ago. Now, last year, May, June, those are the key factors. Number two is the fact that Israel is determined, is intentionally wanting to kill Gazans. They literally want to kill Gazans. There's no other way about it. So Israel's main focus is to continue their genocide. It isn't to stop the war, and let's not call it a war anymore. It's a genocide. Calling it a war is almost a way of legitimizing it. So Israel wants to continue genocide, and it's resumed the genocide.
Right. Now, we've also seen some countries and UN agencies calling for a return to the ceasefire. With what you've seen so far, what's the likelihood that Israel would adhere to these calls?
Well, obviously they won't, because Israel never listened to anybody. They didn't even listen to Biden, albeit Biden, we must remember, is the one that actually set the stage, set the foundation and everything for what we're seeing today. So, having said that, we have a Donald Trump in the White House who is heavily funded by extremely rich Israeli billionaires or Jewish billionaires, if you like, in the United States. And I'm sure you're aware of AIPAC. Hopefully your listeners are aware of AIPAC. And he therefore has a responsibility, because when you get those kind of donations, 100 million upwards, you know, it's a quid pro quo. And we all know how, Donald Trump works. He's a quid pro quo kind of guy. So he's taking the money. He's got to do what they now expect him to do. So nobody's going to be able to stop Israel. Having said that, Donald Trump, I'm not talking about the UN right now, simply because we know what the UN wants. The UN wants the ceasefire. We know what the UN members want. They want the ceasefire to continue. It has been condemned and condemned. And even now, this time, which is actually different, since, Tuesday the 18th, 2 a.m., when Israel killed, 2 a.m., when they killed 400 Gazans, 200 almost were children, women, and the elderly who are fasting. Much as that has happened, we do know that. The one thing that has also happened is you're now having more Western countries who were, traditional allies of Israel, all of whom were chanting the ridiculous, rant of Israel has a right to defend itself, which, by the way, is actually not true. But that's a whole different conversation. Then Israel has a right to defend itself. So you've got the UK now condemning what Israel is doing. In fact, it was interesting to see the UK ambassador to the UN and see what he said. Something, I paraphrase, something to the extent, to the effect of Israel is now, close to breaking international law. So you're seeing France, like I said, Western countries are beginning to speak more and more to condemn Israel. Right. Again, having said that, Israel will only ever listen to America. That's when it does. But since this genocide began, October 8th, Israel has been going and doing pretty much what it wants. And America, even America, has shown itself to not be so strong. It's shown itself to have been captured by AIPAC, the Israeli lobby in America. So who is Israel going to listen to? Until the day America stops providing Israel with ammunition, Israel will continue to do what Israel does, which is killing Palestinians, killing Gazans. Then you have on the other side the Arab countries, the Gulf countries, whom predominantly have been very, very weak. You have to hold them responsible because they've been shirking their responsibility. So we have to hold them accountable for how this genocide has gone so far. You've got Jordan, a small country, I don't know, it's 12 million people. They can't afford this genocide to continue. They certainly can't afford to take in any more Palestinians because they already have, some 60% or so Palestinian refugees in their country. Then you've got Egypt, a very unstable country. So they can't afford that either. They've got the border, you see. So, and then you've got Saudi Arabia. You have the UAE, who stands alone. When we talk about the Gulf countries, we talk about them being weak, holding them accountable. Then you have the UAE, who actually do stand alone and they stand firmly with Israel. In actual fact, you can't even speak for Palestine in the UAE. The UAE do not want the genocide to stop. They have allowed, and they will continue to allow, they support Israel 100%. You have the likes of Bahrain, who are pretty much quiet because they don't really care. So there are several factors in all of this. Again, I will go back. The only country that can stop Israel is America. But it's also the only country that is actually under capture of the Israeli lobby in America.
So, Ms. Bakari, all this is happening at a time when there are frequent talks about a truce, and that's going on in Egypt. Now, you've described the various Gulf countries that are around in the region and sort of the positions or the strengths that they have. Do you think a concerted effort by all of them from Jordan to Egypt and Bahrain would be enough, as well as Saudi Arabia, would be enough to turn the tide and get the US and Israel to be more responsive, particularly if they are speaking with one voice?
Well, put it this way. I can answer that in a very, very simple way. Israel, from the moment the ceasefire began, did not actually stop killing. You must remember that, in fact, I think some 120, 150 Palestinians had been killed by Israel since the ceasefire. This is before the massacre, the Ramadan massacre of Tuesday the 18th. That's number one. Number two is Israel also broke the ceasefire by not allowing the agreed humanitarian aid. So you have all these trucks along the Egyptian border, which have not, including shelters, including medicines, including food, all of which is then now imagine. If Egypt were to say, look, we are going to escort these trucks into Palestine, into Gaza, with our military. If you dare us, we go to war. What do you think Israel would do? Israel would actually stand back. But because they won't, that's why Israel continues to get away with this. That would have been a good way forward. That would have actually stopped this, because here we have Israel is not only committing a genocide with ammunition, is also doing it with famine. So we've had several children who have died of starvation. You've had people, adults who are dying of starvation and thirst. And Israel, before Tuesday the 18th, turned off the electricity finally. The last power station that could give them electricity, Israel turned it off. Okay? So if Egypt, if the Gulf countries got behind Egypt and they all said, look, we are going to escort all these trucks into Gaza, our military will do it. Israel would not be able to stop them. Because Israel cannot continue to fight all these wars. It's already in Lebanon, it's in Syria, it's in Gaza. It can't continue. It literally cannot continue.
You're right when you talk about the expanding conflict. And one particular voice that we've seen very loud has been Yemen's Houthis. But at the same time, the U.S. has also been active in Yemen. Latest reports indicate that they have hit 2 areas in Yemen, including a densely populated neighborhood in the capital of Sana'a. I wonder what your thoughts are, especially because if this conflict becomes something that engulfs the entire Middle East, we could see more players from across the world get involved, not just by speaking, but by actually putting boots on the ground. How do you think the U.S.'s role in this conflict, especially as it has to do with the widening conflict itself, just ties up the entire conversation?
Well, the U.S. has made matters worse. Their role has actually been disgraceful. Where they should effectively be the peacemaker, they are actually the aggressors. They've joined the aggressor and become, aggressor by proxy. Now, let's talk about the Houthis. What did the Houthis say? All they said is, for as long as you continue to bomb the Gazans, we will continue to fight on their behalf. We will face Israel. You are not going to, no international country is going to be able to go through the canal. That's what they said. That is all they said. And they have continued to do that. Now, when America, even though America has bombed them, they are still staying put. Remember, during the ceasefire, the Houthis did not do anything because they said, we are only doing this because you are killing Palestinians. So when the ceasefire was on in Gaza, and, which Israel, if you like, was bombing quietly, the Houthis didn't attack. They didn't attack anyway, okay? But as soon as it resumed, they too began to attack. Now, the American bombing of Yemen is a proxy bombing. It's to trigger a response from Iran. Now, we don't know what Iran can do. I mean, it is said that Iran does have the weaponry to respond, but I don't know how strong that is. It could be an exaggeration. It could not be an exaggeration. But the one thing, again, that we do know with Iran is Iran has not wanted a war. We must remember this. The Western countries and America, they keep painting all these, if you like, they call them the axis of resistance, Muslim countries or Arab countries, as aggressive, demonic, war baiting, but that is not true. That is absolutely not true. Because we've seen them respond in very balanced, very methodical, balanced, logical manner. We've seen them where they can respond with firepower. They don't. They would start to have conversations because they are all focused on peace for the Palestinians. Now, the Houthis have said something. If you continue, they told everybody, they made an announcement last week that nobody is to use Ben Gurion Airport because that is going to be their focus and their target. We don't know how strong that threat is, whether they're going to carry it out, whether they're not. But going back to the fact that they've always done what they said they would do, we can presume they mean that threat. Okay? Now imagine if a Ben Gurion, I don't know if you've been to Israel, but I've been to Israel. If they bomb Ben Gurion Airport, that is a huge deal. A big, big deal. With even more so if I extend that to the fact that a lot of Israelis are now living in Israel. Okay? So the America, Donald Trump, who positions himself and tells the world that he's anti-war, is actually increasing an expansion in the war. He's triggering more conflict, not less, more. And the Houthis are not the type to back down. When America bombed Yemen last week, they didn't kill Houthi fighters. They killed women and children, mostly. And this is the thing. They keep killing women and children.
Well, Ms. Bakari Yusuf, thank you very much for your time on this conversation.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
Ireti Bakari Yusuf is a journalist and the presenter of Borderlines, a weekly radio program that discusses the ongoing Israel-Palestine conflict. And she joined us to speak on the latest out of the Middle East, where we have seen a bombing of Palestine that has killed a Hamas spokesperson, as well as including latest reports which indicate that following this, Israel's bombing in Gaza killed another 16 Palestinians. You're still on to Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. We urge you to stay tuned to your Beyond the News station as we return to other conversations, including the news review, which is up next. Good morning.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.